Let's do it.
Yay! Where there is a will, there is a way.
You know what? You can't let stress get you down.
That is right. Speaking of stress, the theme for today's Knowing You show is actually connected to how to have less stress. And Susie does a fantastic job as a holistic health practitioner and stress resolution coach, recognizing the connection between chronic health issues and our modern lifestyles. She is on a mission to address the foundations of disease by empowering clients to live healthier lives with less emotional, physical, and environmental stress. So I'm very happy to welcome Susie to the show because I love her. I really do. And thank you guys for being patient, by the way, with our technical challenges to get live today. It was a little wonky, but we're here now and we're with you. And thank you so much, Susie, for coming.
It's a pleasure. It's always a treat for an excuse to hang out with you for a while, Tiffany. I've been looking forward to it.
Indeed, indeed. So, talk to me about like the primary areas of stress that you help people with, because I know that there's a lot of stress out in the ethers right now. So
there's a lot.
How do you help them?
And you know, as soon as you start tuning into channels, boy, it's like you open the floodgates. So emotional stress is kind of what comes to mind first. We feel anxious or irritable, or we might be feeling depressed just because of the input, the volume that is. Even this last week, I mean, it just keeps seeming to like ratcheting up a few notches. So emotional stress is a big one. Physical stress is one that people tend to be aware of. When I worked as a massage therapist, it was because that was kind of that point of recognition. When people feel stressed out, their self-care might consist of, oh, I'll book a massage. And that's about as much time and effort as they want to invest in addressing their stress. But I'm also passionate about addressing environmental stress because I think that's kind of the silent problem that so many people don't really recognize. The amount to which it affects us. So I really help people tune into how much these other inputs might be filling up our stress bucket. If you've heard that analogy, I always find that a useful visualization. Yes. So the stress bucket, it fills up, and everything that you add to it makes it a little bit heavier. And, you know, there's the really obvious and aware
like
ones.
When it rains, it pours.
Exactly. And, you know, workplace stress is a big one. Relationship stress can be a big one. And those you really feel when they add to the load. But the little things like, you know, perhaps since I was on the environmental tangent already, you know, if you're using cleaning products that have more chemicals or fragrances, which can impact our health, the EPA actually recognizes that indoor health pollution is one of the top health concerns that we need to be aware of. So that's one that makes that bucket heavier. It takes up space in that bucket without us realizing the load that we're already carrying. And as that bucket gets full, we have less capacity to receive stress and be able to respond to it. We have less resilience. And that's really where I try to help people bring down the load that we're carrying so that we have more space for resilience, so that we don't get wiped out by stress quite so easily, because it's always going to find us. Stress is just a part of life.
So should our goal be to have zero stress in our life, or do you think that that's just impossible?
Yes, I think it's impossible. Our work here is done. No, I think that it's an impossible goal to think that we can live without stress. It's so wired into the way that our brains work. We respond to stress. That's how we learn. That's how we're motivated to do better and be more. People, you might have heard the saying, I guess I'm just going to come up with all of them right off the top. Bad experiences are like Velcro, but good experiences are like Teflon, because we're actually wired to hold on to the bad experiences. There are lessons. That's how we learn. So the good experiences tend to slide right off. And what we take note of are the stresses that add up. So instead of aiming for a zero stress life, because you're just going to get more stress and not achieving that goal, as lovely as it would be, right? It's one of those cyclical patterns. I believe, and this is one of the focuses that I've really incorporated this year, because we're all facing so much more load than we have been, that the power comes from changing our mindset. And when we change the way we perceive stress, we recognize it's going to be a part of life. We recognize we're going to find it. Instead of seeing it as a threat that wears us down or that affects us, that diminishes us, it affects us physically. The stress hormones have an effect on all of our organs. Instead, we can change our perception as an opportunity to rise and thrive, to meet that demand and excel. That's everything. That's the game changer. That's when we can take stress in stride, when we also have the awareness of not just packing things on and walking around with a full bucket, but we give ourselves a chance to recover. So we meet that stress and then we recover. That's where our resilience really gets stronger. And then that's when we have the most healthy cycle of just meeting the demands of stress, but not having it affect our health. Because stress is one of the primary influences or factors in contributing to so many of the chronic diseases that we see so many people experiencing right now.
So talk to me about how stress can significantly impact our health long term.
Yes. In terms of which diseases we're seeing tied to it, I think it's harder to think of a disease that isn't directly related to it. It starts to lay the foundation, certainly for cardiovascular disease. Stress contributes to high blood pressure, and we lose that resilience, that elasticity in our vessels. That's how that becomes more of a problem over time. So beyond cardiovascular disease, it can lead to diabetes, because it changes the way that our body, our hormones operate as we're eating and metabolizing food. So diabetes is even connected to it, and many kinds of cancer. As they do research, they're finding that stress is very closely related to developing cancer. And in many of these cases, maybe in general, when it comes to stress, I believe that the reason it leads to disease is because we get these emotions of stress and we don't know how to deal with them, or we feel it's inappropriate. We tend to try to avoid the emotional reaction. We stuff it. And then those, when they're not cleared, that's when our body is weakened and more likely to develop these diseases. Yes,
yeah,
which you know so well in your work.
Yes, that's part of the reason why I love teaching people how to meditate, because stress is rampant. And I think stress and environmental and life, stuff is going to come up. That's just, a part of life. But the way we cope with it, the way we label it even, because I've noticed, and you could, speak on this too, like even two people exposed to the same stressor, one might, have that Teflon and one might have the Velcro, right? Exactly. And it's the exact same stress. And things that don't stress me out stress other people out. Just even me telling them like all the things that I've got going on in my business, and they're like, that stresses me out just hearing it. And I'm like, oh, really? And then there's things that, I find stressful that other people don't. So why do you think that is? Is that part of our belief system? Is that part of our imprints?
That's
Can you speak to
such
that?
a terrific question. I do. I do believe it's part of our belief system, and I think it's something that we can shift. I've heard the argument is the way that each person deals with stress, is it nature or is it nurture? Are we programmed to handle stress the same way that one or both of our parents have? And I really believe that that's the beginning, because that's the toolkit that we get. That's the model that we see. But beyond that, I don't believe that we're limited to the nature, our genetic predisposition to handling stress. I really believe we have the power to choose how we're going to respond. And neuroplasticity, the discoveries that we've made just in the last decade, really, really go a long way to validate this point, that we have the ability to, just as I was saying, we're wired to seek out stress because that's where the lessons have come from. We get to wire our brains to seek out better situations or better reactions. We can start looking for the better case scenarios instead of only the worst case scenarios. And it takes practice, but those neurons, as they wire together, they fire together. It becomes more easy over time. And so I believe it's so important to recognize if you see that you could change your perception of stress, or if you feel like you would benefit from bringing down your stress response, that the best way to do that is to be practicing not in the heat of the moment. But just like you say, meditation is one of the most important ways to recognize that we are not limited to our emotions or our response. Our thoughts don't define us. They come and they go, and we do not have to buy what they're selling. We can take what serves us, and the power is in the present moment. It's not about the worry about what's in the future. So meditation is definitely one of the top tools that I recommend.
And how else do you support your clients in building healthier habits?
So there's a couple of different tricks and tools that I use. In terms of habits, I really believe in celebrating the small wins and in rewarding progress towards the goal. We've gotten really programmed we're very goal oriented. And when we get to the destination, that's when we're going to celebrate. But that's pretty far off. And sometimes we keep changing the destination along the way. So we never get to that point at which we reward ourselves. So I'm a big fan of milestones. So if you're trying to bring in more activity, which has been hard, I've been sitting at a computer for the better part of this year. And, you just get in the zone. You want to be, very productive and focused. But it's so important to cultivate that habit of activity. Moving your body actually lowers your stress response also. It helps your body to work out any cortisol or stress hormones that have been moving through it. So instead of saying, I'm going to train for a 5K, and when I run the 5K, I'm going to celebrate. Instead, say, I'm going to walk 5 days this week for 10 minutes. And then if you make it to that 5 days in a week goal, decide how you're going to reward yourself, and not with something that's going to be a setback, not with ice cream, maybe with a vanilla ice or something like that, maybe with a sorbet, but look for rewards that are also going to help keep you moving in the right direction. So I'm a big fan of celebrating the small wins.
Love it. And what other tools do you use or teach other people to use to relieve emotional stress?
Yeah, I have some favorite remedies that I use that I've been using for years. And I really, really love recommending them to my clients, to friends and family. My mom is a nurse. I'm very well versed in the Western, medicine mindset. And it's been so rewarding to me as I've been exploring and building my practice and making recommendations to my parents when mom says, I could use some more flower essences. I used up my bottle. So flower essences are kind of my secret weapon. And they're very subtle remedies. People tend to hear essence and think essential oils, but they're actually the opposite. They're not the concentrated chemical properties of essential oils, which you have to be educated to use safely. There are some rules to essential oils, but flower essences are energetic remedies. They're very chemically dilute, but they're very energetically potent, and they help bring our emotions back into balance. So you might be feeling very vehement on a subject, very almost, you can't stop talking about it. It's the only thing, that comes up in conversation with anyone that you talk with. That's vervain, when you're very vehement. But also at the same time, if you're not speaking up enough, if you're letting things go, there's a couple of different flower essences, but I'm trying to think of a demonstration of that. If you're just not as, convicted or outspoken on a subject as you could be or should be or may want to be, if you're presenting yourself in the world, perhaps in business, then vervain can help you become more bold and outspoken. So it helps you find balance, and they all work that way. So you can't really take a wrong flower. It brings you back to where you want to be.
I've used Bach flower remedies off and on over the years. I really like them. What others do you recommend? Because do you think that certain constitutions or personalities work better with different kinds of flower remedies than other people?
I see. In terms of not necessarily the types or emotional response, but the types of people who resonate with the flowers, I do agree. I think that people who are more into the practice of meditation, people who are more aware and tuned in, find more benefit from the flowers because they're very subtle. They're not making chemical changes in our body. It's not taking valerian to make you tired. It's, taking white chestnut helps calm the busy thoughts in your mind. So when you lay down to sleep, your mind is more peaceful and it's easier to sleep. So it's a shift that way. And sometimes if people are not sure if they're really recognizing the benefit of the flowers, I tell them it's almost easier to look in retrospect and say, did you notice that something didn't trigger you the same way that it would have before? Did you notice that you're not as worried now about your family as you've been telling me that that's a concern to you? And so that it's a subtle shift. It's a subtle sort of a support in bringing people back into balance. So sometimes we have to kind of attune ourselves into recognizing how they support. So I do hear for some people, they don't feel that the support is there. But I do think it helps to find a little bit of calm and quiet so that you can recognize it.
And what do you think of good old-fashioned rescue remedy?
I love rescue remedy. It's such a great go-to. It's a combination of 5 flowers. I probably won't remember them all, but rock rose is for shock and fright. Those really frightening situations. Star of Bethlehem is a beautiful one for healing trauma, also for getting connected back to spirit. Dr. Bach, when he developed the flower essences, what he felt the primary problem that people experienced that would move them towards disease. And he was a physician, he was a virologist, he was into immunology in the 30s and 40s. So he was working with vaccines. This wasn't, he didn't come from outside the medical system to these, but he was looking for a more natural support. And so he felt that the root of dis-ease comes from that feeling of separation. And I know that's something that you really beautifully bring awareness to, is that we are so connected. We are connected to each other. We are connected to spirit, to the energy that surrounds everyone. We are energy. And that's how these energetic remedies can give us such wonderful support.
In regards to rescue remedy, I noticed that, there's the drops that you can put under your tongue, but there's also the gummies, and there's a couple different variations now. Do you think one is more powerful than another?
I think that they all work. I think that the rescue for pets is pretty much the same as rescue remedy. It might have one more remedy that addresses a situation that pets have. And since I don't have one right in front of me, I couldn't say what that is. It might be Heather is one about demanding attention, right? And pets, when they bark or they jump or they want more of us. Heather is something that might help them calm down and not be needing as much validation from us. Rescue Remedy Sleep might have the white chestnut essence that I mentioned, because busy mind is such a common kind of complaint with being unable to sleep. So I love that they're a great combination. They're pretty well-rounded. They're definitely, I recommend them if people say they have experiences of, panic attacks or anxiety, or their child is prone to kind of temper tantrums. They're really supportive. At the same time, you can blend any flower essences. I mean, there's North American, there's Australian bush essences, there's many different lines. So it's not that you only have Bach flower essences to work from, but his 38 are really the core of my practice. And you can customize combinations and really get to the root of what's going on. So I like Rescue Remedy if someone is far away, they need a solution quickly, they've got a health food store, because it's pretty easy to find. But in most cases, I find that the custom combination where you can really see where people need to come back into balance is the most helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a healer maybe 12 years ago do a custom combination for me. I wish I remembered what those flowers were, because it feels like I could use that again. Like it's time for another combo of essences.
I can help you out with that. I would love to. You have definitely given me some wonderful support in the last couple of months, so I would love to return the favor. Though I have a questionnaire that's pretty standard. A lot of practitioners start with this questionnaire. It just kind of shines a light in some areas that might not be front of mind. If you're telling somebody, I have these emotions that I'd like to relieve. And so the questionnaire helps just to have a very thorough approach. But you can make a custom combination of flower essences, 6 to 8, maybe even 12 different essences. It depends, on the person and the situation. And then things shift, so it's nice to get it tuned into where you are as you move through the current situation.
Mm-hmm. And is that one of the gifts that you have for us?
So I did include, and did I send you the link, or should I?
Can you
pop it in if I can find it? I'll work on that. So
I know
did
what
put a
the
couple on the
link
page.
is. Like, I can read that, but I can't type it in because I'm having to use my phone for this. But it's the number 3X for 3 times, lessstress.com/knowing-you.
Okay, it does.
And
terrific.
Maybe she can type that in for us, and you might have to type it in Facebook, not here.
Yeah, I'll do that. So I'll keep working on that.
Yeah. But
so
3 times lessstress.com/knowing-you. And she's got a couple of gifts in there. Okay, tell us about those gifts.
I do. I couldn't resist. So the first one, if you're looking at the webpage, there's a couple of different options. The first is a stress assessment, because as I mentioned, I really want to help people recognize they don't need to be carrying around as much as they traditionally do. You just tend to kind of put blinders on, and we stop noticing. So a stress assessment helps you just see in the 3 different areas, physical, emotional, and environmental, where stress might be sneaking in, gives you kind of a bird's eye view. But also on that page, and there's a link then, if after the stress assessment or at any point, I have a link so you can just set up a free call with me for 30 minutes if you want to talk about how stress is showing up for you, get some ideas or some tools to help you move forward. That's a gift. And then also on that page, I have a link to my flower essences to support emotions of stress. And so it gives an overview of flower essences, what they are, how you can use them. And then I've broken down into some categories of emotions, what different essences work specifically, because they really tune into some different nuances in the emotions. So that's all there, and I'll work on getting that link in so that that's available to everybody. If there's any issues downloading the links, MailChimp and I have been having quite a week. So please reach out to me through Facebook or however is convenient, and we will
give
make
him
sure
a banana.
That cheeky monkey. Oh. Truly.
Oh.
Where's the best place? Is it on your page or on your group, darling? I think we're live on your group right now.
Okay, so
I'll
go
start
ahead
with that.
Okay.
So yeah, so perfect. I'll get that in there before we hop off, and that'll be in there with the recording then as well. So yeah, those gifts are available, and I hope that you'll take me up on those because these are some of my favorites.
And while she's putting that in the link for us, why don't we just all take a moment to just close our eyes and do a couple of deep breaths around this theme of de-stressing and getting centered and rebalanced. So let's take a deep breath in, hold, exhale, release stress. Inhale in divine healing energies and blessings. Hold. Exhale. Release anything that isn't love. And one more. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Release. All right, Susie, is that up yet?
I'm still scrolling, but I'll pop that into both of the comments. I'll pop over to YouTube and make sure it's there too. So yeah, that web address again is 3xlessstress.com/knowing-you. So you can find those links on that page, and I'll get those comments up so you can click on through if you want to collect those.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Susie. Have a beautiful rest of your day, everyone.
Yeah.
Much love. Bye for now.
Thank you.